Post Building in downtown North St. Louis. This is Inside City.
Matt Schindler,
Yes,
welcome to Inside City.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for being here. We're here at the Post-Dispatch at 900 North Tucker in this wonderful Art Deco building. Originally, the Post-Dispatch's home, a newspaper that started in the late 19th century. A wonderful forum for the open exchange of ideas and journalistic integrity. So I think it's fitting that we're here doing Inside City podcast, talking about innovation, business development, community building, and a variety of things. So no weighty task here for us as far as the legacy of this organization and us being here. So for our audience, they're likely used to seeing John Berglund here in this seat. So
Okay.
one of the things that I wanted to share with our audience is that we're expanding our lane. So we'll have 3 new topics or categories of conversation, of which you're going to be our first installment of. Carlos Zamora is going to be he's from Cartel and the creative director, and he'll have conversations about emerging St. Louis brands. We'll have Carissa Davis. Carissa Davis is a part of St. Louis Development Corporation, and she's going to be having conversations around city communications. And I'm Evan Bronstein. So I'm an artist, educator, architect, and in my role as a design principal, I'm often involved in conversations around design leadership, mentorship, project strategy, of course, designing objects within the built environment. And so for me, I'm interested in having conversations that bridge the gap between design and critical thinking. Essentially, those friction points, those moments where design needs to happen in order to institute real and present change. So Matt, as we started our conversations about you coming in and having us talk about your organization and its institutional changes, I provided this provocation. I said, design is a response to a demand for change. The idea that there's a place where a client, an institutional organization is, and their aspirational place. And the delta between the two of those, that's where the scaffolding begins. That's where design becomes the vehicle for that change. And I thought, when we would begin our conversation, it would be for our audience an opportunity for them to think about, well, surely the design professional sits at that seat, right? At that seat of change, because they're the ones that are coming up with the ideas. But I think the reality is it's the leaders of the organizations, their staff, their board, the organization that they make up, that's where they recognize change is needed. And it's at that point where the questions come up, what could this be like for us? Where are we now? What do we need to do to improve or build upon what our current programming requirements are? And I thought it'd be really wonderful for us to learn more about you, who you are, as we have this conversation, to understand what it takes to be a leader and what it takes to create the opportunities that change provides.
Very good.
So here we are having this conversation. So maybe you could start with just a little bit of background about you.
I'm a native St. Louisan. I grew up in South County. I've lived in North County, currently live in West County, and I've worked in the city now for over 20 years. So I have a good feel for what's going on in the region, both locally in the city and St. Louis County, and also the greater region too. And I have a strong heart for St. Louis getting better and improving and returning to some of the stature that it's had in the past. I think we are a city that's on the cusp of some big movements, and I'm hopeful leadership going forward can take us there.
Yeah, and what's the organization that you represent?
I am currently with Seed St. Louis. We are formerly known as Gateway Greening, and our mission is to empower people and communities to grow food. And to do that, we work through community gardens, school gardens, community orchards, and urban farms. And it is really bring people together that want to grow food, but it's really a community-led project. For us, we have 250 projects across the region. We've been around for 40 years. And I think we built up a great model in terms of taking vacant spaces and making them vibrant. And it's not just the growing the food piece, but it's also the beauty that those places bring, the community it creates, the improvement in the environment, and just a small catalyst to hopefully get a block or a neighborhood going in the right direction.
All right. So have you always had a green thumb?
I've had a thumb. It's been slightly green. It's gotten greener over the years.
Yeah.
But for me, when I came to Seed St. Louis 9 years ago now, it's just the fact that we don't tell people what to do. We go in, the communities come to us saying that we have an idea. And part of our process is to make sure they thought through all the issues and have enough community around them to support their project. So therefore, we talk them through both community assets, community needs, what role Seed St. Louis can play in that. But part of our mission is the fact that if Seed St. Louis goes away tomorrow, 250 projects are not going to go away. We've hopefully built them up strong enough as in the community and rooted them well enough that they're going to prosper still. I would argue they might not get as much education and enough resources for expansion, but we hopefully built them up strong enough as a community with their leadership to continue, whether they're growing food for themselves, growing food for their local community, or even growing food for a food pantry.
That's wonderful. And I guess the understanding that growth and development is part and parcel of the organization itself. And I imagine that for you, maturing as a professional, you arrived at a point where you felt like you were ready to take on a challenge like this. And I'm often wondering, what about your upbringing or part of your background
Mhm.
maybe prepared you for this kind of opportunity that you're in?
For me, I've always worked in nonprofits. Actually, I got married, and soon after that, my wife and I went and did the Peace Corps, where I did advanced business development, but it was not very advanced in Armenia. So
Okay.
it was a good level setting of what we have here in the U.S. and a lot of the benefits and the structures that are so wonderful that we have here in the U.S. to really have people grow and develop. So coming back from the Peace Corps, I essentially did what I call kind of Peace Corps St. Louis and went to work for the International Institute. And I helped refugees and immigrants start businesses locally. And just seeing their drive, their desire, and their passion to succeed. And I think St. Louis greatly benefited from those immigrants coming to the region. And then I was there for 7 years and then made a shift in terms of also continuing to promote downtown St. Louis by joining at the time, the Downtown Partnership. It became Downtown STL Inc. before I left. But I was in the role of helping promote residential, office, and retail downtown. And I'll admit, I came in right before the Great Recession. So we had a residential tour with condos and apartments all ready to be shown off. And they were canceling the day of the tour as the
Oh,
economy
man.
went down. So, but it was fun to be in the heart of the region because downtown is the front door for many people to St. Louis. And it was great to help both make the residents feel happy, the office workers have a good experience, and then tourists too. It was a great mix and having them congregate in our core of our region with our city symbol right there too. So it was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed being downtown and then ended up with the shift going to Seed St. Louis, just getting back more to a local level. There's a lot of politics downtown. So
Mm.
it's nice to come to a place where we're just helping communities do what they want to do. And I think that's been a very rewarding thing, both for the staff that we have in terms of giving back and the progress that we've seen regionally in terms of more people understanding nature, understanding the value of eating better. And one of the things I keep telling people too is COVID was kind of good to us on the demand side,
Mhm.
that people realized the value of being outside and eating healthier. And we had our demand double during COVID, and it's not let up yet. And then we were greatly surprised by the educational pieces where we used to be all in-person classes. Shifted to virtual, wasn't sure what's going to happen, and we've quadrupled the number of attendees we have for our classes now. It's even hard to go back in person. But the desire and the demand is there from people to both be outside, be in nature, grow their food, and have a place to come and meet their neighbors in a common space where they can complain together about the bugs or the animals that are damaging their fruits and vegetables.
Sure. So it seems like, having that opportunity to learn about process and procedural steps, how to cultivate
Mhm.
essentially bringing an individual or family or group to help them realize their dreams, that there seems like there's a bit of an overlap there. I feel like you're in the business of empowerment in
Mhm.
many respects. And then hearing you talk about the Seed St. Louis and the kinds of programs that are in place. It's about empowering people, like you mentioned, grow their own food, makes them more cognizant of where their food comes from.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering a little bit more, maybe tell us a little bit more about that transition, the transition from helping communities and individuals realize their dreams and their goals,
Mhm.
right? And then transitioning to an organization like Seed St. Louis.
I think for us, with coming, I think one thing through line through all of this is the fact that we all need to take help where it's offered.
Yeah.
And I think right now, especially right now in some ways, we need to have that mentality going forward that we are a community, that we can't do it alone. And for Seed St. Louis, I'm working with the communities. They have ideas, but they might need a few more pieces. They might have pieces in their neighborhood, and maybe we can add a little more to it. but help them realize their dreams, and then really taking that aspect of working together and making a long-term relationship. Because we were definitely more focused early on with our projects of getting them built. There you go run it. And we've really just kind of morphed that into more of a, come to us if you want to do, say, 15 garden beds. Let's just do 10 this first year.
Mhm.
Get that going, make sure you can handle it. And then the next year we can come back and maybe 2 or 3 or even do the 5 once you're ready. I think a lot of times it's like you see a plate, you think you can eat it all. And
Sure.
gardening can be tough. And I think one thing I always try to say with people who are interested in doing is you're going to fail. There are going to be animals that get in your way. There are going to be bugs that get in your way. And the weather can get in your way. And you can do everything correctly with the soil, the watering, and the plants you choose. And everything's beyond your control. And then having that tenacity to keep continuing and growing the project, going the next step. And even for us as an organization, we were primarily focused on garden beds with vegetables in beds. 5, 6 years ago now, we added an orchard program where now we offer fruit and nut trees as part of the package too. And that's brought a whole new aspect to what we do in terms of some trainings, but it's also brought a whole new, I think, piece of nature to these landscapes with also additional benefit, because some trees can really produce quite a bit of fruit and nuts.
So also hearing an aspect of patience in here,
Oh yes,
right? Like
definitely.
so, aspects of leadership require a certain amount of diligence, but also a certain amount of patience. So when you joined the organization, it wasn't called Seed St. Louis.
Correct.
Right?
It was Gateway Green at that time. Yes.
Okay. So you arrive at Gateway Green.
Yes.
And what do you experience in that first couple of weeks that you're there in terms of how it's organized and structured, and what did you see were some of the opportunities for growth and change?
Well, for the organization at the time when I came, we had 4 different locations, and part of the desire on the board when they hired me was us to find a new location to bring it all together as best we could. Because we had an office on Washington Avenue, we had a urban farm downtown, actually right now where the Enterprise Stadium is now for soccer.
Okay.
And we had a demonstration garden in Grand Center, and then not connected to it, we had an operations facility. So different spaces, clearly challenges among the spaces in terms of volunteers going the wrong place, staff running around getting things. And it was always awful when I was in my office downtown. We had a retail level when a school bus would pull up and start unloading. And I'm like, no, you're at the wrong location. So coming to the organization, that was my first goal, to make sure we achieved bringing us together and making it much more operationally efficient and taking our service to the next level. But the one thing when I joined the organization, is just the passion that people had for growing and improving spaces in St. Louis. I have a great staff. I've had a great staff, and just the fact that we're lucky in the fact that we can offer a service that's outside in nature, and you can tangibly touch the benefits you're giving to somebody. Because we can walk into a vacant lot 3 hours later after a new garden installation. Somebody's there with a plant ready to put it in the garden bed.
Sure.
And you can clearly see the beds are in, they're all excited. And that feedback seeing the community get excited about it, and the staff gets excited too. And it's a tangible and fairly cost-effective way to really kind of revamp some of these vacant lots we have in the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County.
Sure. Yeah. So as you're starting to look around and you see there's a logistical challenge to how you're implementing your programming, and then you're in a number of disparate locations throughout the city, as you mentioned. So maybe there's opportunity in having some land in a particular area where you have access to it. But one of the things that I'm curious about is, so at some point you had to figure out, we need maybe a home base. We need to have a point at which we can continue to grow and expand, so people can identify Seed St. Louis with maybe a particular home.
Correct.
And I think it's hard to do this without a garden in front.
Right.
So like, okay, come see our garden, but it's 4 blocks away.
Right.
So what was the process of trying to maybe find a new home, or maybe find a place where you can have a combination of a built space and a particular garden?
It was not easy. There were a couple ideas that were thrown out to me when I first joined the organization that we explored. It's just to find both the right situation for an office and a classroom space, and then also a suitable space for a garden. We went through, I want to say, a good probably 4 or 5 locations that got serious consideration. And it came to the point we had one building under contract, Dr. Martin Luther King in the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood. And we needed a large landowner in North City to work with us. It did not work out. And the next day, it fell apart because of the cost that was being offered to us by that piece of being next door to the building. And the next day, I met with somebody who worked at Clayco at the time, and he told me, Maxine Clark is doing this new project up in the West End. in the old St. Luke's Hospital. And that started the ball rolling for us. And working with her, working with the other nonprofits that are part of the whole complex. And then for us, our offices are there. And right now we have purchased land across the street from the Del Mar Divine to build a demonstration garden. We're working with our utilities right now to get those in place, and working with our architects to really put that vision that we've had for a long time. And it's not just my vision. It's the vision of the staff we've had over the years. It's the vision of the board that we've had over the years of what we can do in terms of a new space that's food demonstration, both for adults and for kids to come there, get their hands dirty, learn something, and grow food, and really take that, what essentially is like a life skill, whether it be for the adult or for the kid. Once you try it, you're going to get hooked.
Sure.
It's that first initial, get out there, get your hands a little dirty, and give it a try. And especially for a lot of kids in the region, they don't know where the tomato plant, how it grows, where the tomato comes from. And if you actually take a kid, put them in a garden, have them grow it themselves, learn about the bugs, learn about the worms, when it grows, they're going to try it because they put all the equity and sweat and effort into it. They're going to try it, and hopefully they'll like it. We do expend the palate a little bit when they do grow their own food, but it's just a positive place to be. And we want to have our new site with our new design with the demonstration garden to be a hub for that, to bring people from all over the region to come and learn, take those ideas back, whether it be the community garden, school garden, or a community orchard, but also do their homes. Because while we focus on the community project side with our mission, we know a lot of backyard gardeners are also taking our resources, both through plants and seeds and our education, and taking it to their own home and growing their own food too.
Yeah, that's wonderful. One of the things, though, I would like to back us up on, though, is because I think our audience would be interested in getting an appreciation for the process of getting there, right? Like it's very interesting because for many folks, you come around and you'll see a restaurant open and you're like, oh, what a wonderful restaurant, right? But you don't know all the blood, sweat, and tears that go into the preparation, the visioning of what that experience is supposed to be like for somebody in a particular space or locale. And I can imagine that as a non-for-profit, you have a certain amount of resources available to you to work, but the aspirations are much larger. I'm gesturing at the camera here now. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, our dreams are like this because it aligns with what we are. I think people are looking to you as a leader to expand upon the opportunities and find avenues. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about some of those initial steps. So we had Maxine Clark and an opportunity with land that might be appropriate for the use, and starting to work with some municipality and utility infrastructure. So what other things needed to be in place before you could really move this forward?
Part of the challenge with the nonprofits is having the resources to spend on renderings of a project. We have an idea, might have a decent vision, but renders are not really cheap sometimes. And I think getting help from lots of different people along the way. And we at least had two different opportunities, so different versions of how the garden could fit with the Del Mar Divine, and different things come into play. We analyze different issues, and then it all comes down to money too, in terms of how to really pull it all together. So for us, we looked at different locations at the site where we could build our garden, ended up settling on a different one than we initially thought, shifted our office around in the complex. But we've had a lot of help from over the years, both not just at this site, but in previous sites, where I had a beautiful building with a beautiful garden all drawn out.
Yeah.
And it's gone nowhere. And just the pain, and you feel bad because people are giving us free help along the way. And you're like, oh, the dream didn't come true. And that challenge. And for me, I've never built a garden of this kind of scale before. So really relying upon the experts to help us walk through, is this really a good site? What are the challenge on these various sites? And then what are opportunities too? How can we have our vision right now. We think we have all the wild ideas. Sometimes a designer has a good idea you can throw in there too. You even take it to the next level and like, oh, I didn't think about that. And I think just bringing your team as large as you can with all the different ideas, all the creativity to really have a unique, fun experience in a new space.
Yeah, I think one of the things that helps fortify how that comes together is the branding and the image of what that is. And I've seen the Seed St. Louis logo now since we've started our conversations. And I recall you mentioning something about the experience of formulating that logo and understanding how that is. I wonder if you could maybe share some of that experience also.
Well, for the majority of our history of over 40 years, we were called Gateway Greening. And when I joined the organization, there was a consistent confusion with us and Great Rivers Greenway.
Okay.
I was at city events where they're introducing me as Great Rivers Greenway and the Great Rivers Greenway fellow as Gateway Greening. So we knew it was a challenge, and we got phone calls about people leaving dog poop on trails, and we were like, the wrong organization. We got to call the other number. But so we knew when we moved, we wanted to make a shift in our name, both one because of confusion, and also two more for the mission. Because back in our history, there was more of a flower beautification focus. And over the years, it has really shifted much more towards food. And that's what our core product and service really is right now. And then with the name change, I'll say we got lucky. This was during COVID. Filament did an event they called Thanksgiving. And it was the first year where they're partnering for-profits with nonprofits. And they asked for us to pitch ideas, not just begging for money. What do we need help from with a nonprofit? And we pitched changing our name. And I think for Purina to come in and select us, it's a very fun, tangible project. They knew that once they help us, their influence is going to have a great effect upon us as an organization. So they came in, did a wonderful job going through focus groups, discussing different words, different images, and we ended up settling on Seed St. Louis and the fact that it helped with the logo, got us through all that process. We had the launch, and then we had the name change ready to go as we moved into Del Mar Divine.
That's wonderful. Are there other organizations that you were a party to that helped in your own professional development once you had taken the reins?
I guess the big one that really kind of influenced where we are now with our demonstration garden is Focus St. Louis.
Okay.
And Leadership St. Louis program, just connecting me to different people, and not necessarily new people, but even just connecting me with old people I knew before, had various different relationships with, and reconnected us. Like, wait, okay, here's an opportunity we could work together on to bring forth our vision that we have right now. So working with Jason Pearson Jacobs, it just took off. He sent out an email one day saying, hey, anybody need any pro bono work? I will gladly respond to that. So it just started rolling from there. And it's been a great process for us just to explore the ideas, explore even curveballs that I've thrown at them over the past couple of years as we explore possible expanding the project in different ways. But that's what St. Louis is. It's just a small town. It's amazing how we're all interconnected, and we all just need to work together to realize that larger vision that's out there.
Yeah, I always in my mind, I always think of people that are gardeners as a more introverted, more interested in the empowerment that they feel by virtue of nurturing something along to further growth and development. But in order to be successful at what you're doing, you need to apply some extrovert personality
Definitely.
to it, right? So it's like you definitely need the diversity of viewpoints, the diversity of focus, within an organization, whether it be someone that's externally facing to try to look for opportunities, as well as providing appropriate forum for teachers and instructors that help those that have a smaller voice, if you will, to help see what they can achieve as they go through it. So we talked a lot about the background of this, getting the ground, some of the development of brand identity. Where is Seed St. Louis right now in terms of its developmental arc?
Right now for us, it's really coming out of COVID. We have past year or so as a programmatic organization, just really focused on our core network of 250 projects to make sure they're strong. And if they need help in certain ways, how can we help them? So this past year, we actually visited every one of our projects, did a check-in with them. What's your strengths? What's your weaknesses? And what role can we play? Or are there other resources out there that we can find for you? So really going forward, we're really trying to catch up with everybody, make sure we know what's going on, especially regarding some leadership changes at the projects during COVID. And that's on the programmatic side. And then for the capital campaign side with the new demonstration garden, I'm learning a lot about easements right now and utilities and the challenges around that and how you build around them. And for us right now, our plan is to get the garden going under construction this summer and have the garden piece open by next spring, 2026.
Okay. So in the city of St. Louis, there are various locations where there's vacant land. The urban fabric has, been fractured in many spaces. And I noticed that one of the services that Seed St. Louis provides is a land trust. It's an opportunity. I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because it sounded to me like it's a place to preserve green space within the city, and that could help for a community to build around.
It is really a tool that we've used over the years to kind of solidify the projects. When we had a number of projects that were on city land, and the way the structure was, they could be sold out from under them within 60 days. So we worked with the city a number of years ago and really kind of talked to them. We have a number of projects that have been around for a long time, in some cases for 15 years and more, that were still on city land. And we talked to them about finding a price that was reasonable, that was affordable for the communities to buy the land. And then we would actually provide the assistance on the legal side and title side to get the purchase accomplished. And then for those communities that didn't have the funding available, we got some grant funding to go in. So long ago, we started up with 3 projects in the land trust, but then we added about 13 about 16 years ago. There was a threat of one project that had been around for 20 years of being knocked down for a guy's dream home. And it really rallied the community because gardeners spoke like, wait,
Sure.
you're in trouble? What about us now? So
Sure.
it really rallied everybody around. And it was a great effort what we do with the land trust is we encourage them if the neighborhood association would buy it, we encourage more local ownership. That's great. But that is not an option. We just own the land. The functioning operations of the garden continue the way they have always done. They just know that it's not going to go away. As long as they remain a green project, we're going to leave them alone. So they can maybe then at that point in time, add in irrigation, add in a pavilion, and not to worry about spending that kind of money on infrastructure when it could go away. So for us, it's a way to actually preserve these projects long-term, allow them to grow in a more direct way. And even right now, there's some other projects out there that are like, well, maybe we should think about the land trust. And for us, we don't want to necessarily be a land holder. If the neighbor association at a certain point in time says, okay, we want to buy it, we'll sell it for $1.
Mhm.
We are just purely a tool to help them preserve their project and hopefully grow their project over the years. If it can be used, great. If it doesn't need to be used, we're not going to push it.
Yeah, I mean, placemaking, we
Mhm.
often, in my field as an architect, we think about the placemaking as the buildings that
Yes.
make up the community. That if it sticks around, it's because the community feels that this building continues to add value
Mhm.
to um, uh, what it represents for the community. If it's a civic building, sometimes homes have
Oh, yeah.
historic
Mhm.
components to them because of who lived there and what the stories that can be told. But I'm also learning from you now that really the ground can be as if you forgive the metaphor, as foundational
Mhm.
in understanding a sense of community, and that preserving green space is likely as important in the development of a community as it is the physical buildings that it puts around it.
Well, even with the land trust, we went to the city to actually make our case why we need to buy these parcels. We brought a realtor along, and the realtor told us, hey, we actually promote the community garden in the neighborhood as part of our sales pitch. Because there's always the argument, what is the highest and best use?
Mhm.
Could you take a community garden that's been there for 20 years and put a single family home on there? You could, and you get tax money off of it. But is that really enriching the whole community? And so part of our argument with you need to have some green space in your neighborhoods. You need to have a common space to bring them together. And it does. It provides the beauty, it provides an extra level of security because there's more people out on the street there, keeping eyes on what's going on. It's a place to meet your neighbors, which is getting harder and harder, it seems like these days, to really connect with other people outside your immediate family.
That's great. So I wondered also maybe you talked a little bit about some of the programming that's in place, but having a home for Seed St.
Yes.
Louis, what are the kinds of programs that you're hoping to solidify and then grow with the new space?
I think one thing to clarify with the Del Mar Divine, if people aren't familiar with it, it is a hub for nonprofits. There are 30 plus nonprofits there with common space on the first floor. So for us, it's been great to have that extra meeting space, extra conference room space. We hold our annual community agricultural conference there at the Del Mar Divine every year.
Mm.
We have breakout rooms. This is that shared community space that I have to go pay somewhere else to rent to actually pull
Sure.
it off. We can walk downstairs, roll the tables around, and fully utilize the space. So it's created a unique community of nonprofits in there in general. So for us and our role with building a new demonstration garden across the street is, can we find ways to connect the other nonprofits that are in there to nature? And one way is one nonprofit there does provide some disability services as a day program. We've discussed once the garden opens, rather than going off site with their clients, they can walk across the street, have their clients volunteer in the garden. They get the benefit and we get the benefit. And then part of our planning with the space itself and the design is to have what I'm calling right now kind of an outdoor classroom, or outdoor conference room, and the fact that we can reserve rooms at the Del Mar Divine. White box rooms, they're functional, they have windows, they have that good tech and audio visual. But could we actually have them log on and actually rent a little space in our garden for a meeting where you can come outside and meet with your client, do the counseling session, just have a staff meeting outside? because we saw it, especially at our farm downtown. When clients are struggling, nature can really help them. And they will share more talking to a plant than they will staring at somebody head on in a white box room.
Sure.
So we would love to provide a little area with benches and a little garden bed in the middle. Just have people talk, because nature can heal you. And if they can actually provide the counseling piece on top of that, if we can enhance their services in some way with our space, we want to try and do that too.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes the buildings that we create, they provide a disconnect, if you will, to nature and the environment around it. And we often feel like, oh, we need to be in that conditioned space,
Right.
where we
yeah.
can sit and do our work. No natural light or what have you. But we do change, right?
Right.
Like you mentioned, our countenance changes, our well-being shifts when we're in natural environments. And I think that predisposition is something that obviously you're
Yes.
tapping into, but I
Yes.
had never heard of that idea before. And I love it. The fact that you'd have an outdoor conference room, essentially. Would you do something overhead when you do this?
A little bit for
little bit
some
of
shade,
canopy?
and maybe if it's light rain, you can still hang out there and not have to run inside. But yeah, a little bit of protection, a little bit of enclosure for the security,
Mhm.
and just provide that space to talk.
Yeah.
It works in other places, and I think we need to actually look at just the way we kind of treat some of the services we do and find ways to connect with nature. And I think schools are realizing that too. Just with our school garden program, getting kids outside, even just to be outside running around a little bit,
Mhm.
they'll come back in the classroom in a better mood. They'll burn a little energy. And if you can actually have an outdoor classroom then at the school, you can teach them too. So you can teach them while you're out there, but also bring them back in the classroom later on, feeling better, a little more relaxed, and hopefully give the teacher an easier afternoon going forward.
Sure. Are there currently specific programs that you have with the public school system or other schools?
I think right now we are in 17 school districts.
Okay.
Our biggest partner is St. Louis Public Schools. And it's just really working with the school administrators and the teachers. When there's that initial desire to look at outdoor education, we want to be there for them. So we also provide, obviously, the physical pieces, the garden beds, the soil and the stuff and the tools. But also we have an extra layer for our education program where we have educators go in and help the teachers. Give them the tools with the curriculum that actually line up with the state testing, so they make it easier so they know when they go outside with the kids, they're still working towards their state test, working towards their own goals, but they're also giving the kids the benefit of being outside in nature,
Mhm.
learning, seeing what the butterfly looks like, seeing what the worm
Sure.
looks like, rather than just in the book and looking at the picture, and give them that experience. Because for me, in my job, I keep telling people, my best part of my job is a school garden tour. Just for the kid, the pride and joy they have being outside. This is their garden. They've planted it. They've maintained it. And there's no phone around. And the fact that they
Sure.
can just walk through, pick something off, throw it in their mouth, you can't beat it. It's
Yeah.
one of the funnest things to be a part of.
So I'm going to ask a naive question.
Sure.
So is this a 4-season operation?
It is really our core programming is really the spring and the fall.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to build anything in July and August outside. It does go dormant. But for the gardens, it's 3 seasons for sure, because they're out there watering throughout the summer months. And for the winter, it's really kind of regrouping, getting ready for the next year, preparing our materials, and getting ready for our conference in February. And I'm always amazed with our conference in February. Everybody is so excited for spring. We will have an ice storm. People will still come out
Yeah.
and want to be part of that and get ready and start thinking about what they're going to plant for the growing season.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting that you touch on. I'll use the phrase metamorphosis, but
Mhm.
the transfer of time across across the year, I think is something that we're very much in tune to.
Mhm.
Right? It's always at that right in February. People are like, I can't wait till it gets
Right.
warmed up. For those of us that in an office on a regular basis, it's like you're riding the elevator, and that's the first thing people comment on.
Right.
It's like, when is this weather going to change? When is this going to get better?
Uh-huh.
And that's usually one of the things that people are always cognizant of and look forward to is getting back outside,
Yes.
getting back and connecting with nature. And it's like that centering.
Mhm.
It's really that point where you feel more connected, I think, not just to nature or a specific something, but to everyone,
Yes.
right? It's that common thing that binds us all. So is there anything else? Maybe give us some ideas about how people can get access to some of the information. Likely you have a website.
Yes, we
right?
do.
Okay.
Yes, seedstl.org. And please explore it, because we have different opportunities too. Not only do we serve community gardens, school gardens, but we also work with volunteers. We have a very large volunteer program where we help both individuals and corporations get out to these projects and help them, especially for the school gardens. They greatly appreciate a large group coming in at the beginning of the year, getting the garden cleaned up, getting it ready for the kids, and on the back end, helping them close it down at the end of the season, tearing everything out. So And we've seen it since COVID, especially too, just the fact that corporate groups really like getting outside,
Mm.
being in nature. They're seeing it too. They're in the office all day long.
Sure,
They
right?
enjoy the volunteer opportunity, bonding with their coworkers and getting outside and really getting their hands dirty. And then again, it's a very tangible experience. The fact that you can walk away and you can see your results, whether you were weeding, you were planting, putting a new garden bed in, you walk away knowing you accomplished something fairly quickly, but it provides that community or that garden some great benefit.
That's wonderful. So, could you give us maybe like a small project or something that a family could engage in just in their backyard to get them started? Like, let's say they go to your website and
Hmm.
they can see all the potential, but they're like, I just want to try it in my backyard first before I go out into my community. Is there like a small project or something that they could start with that you feel like could be an easy beginning?
I would recommend just plant some cherry tomatoes. Go to your
Okay.
local nursery, locally owned, not none of the big boxes, but go to a locally owned nursery you have around you and ask for some cherry tomatoes. They grow well. Odds are they're going to produce something just to get you started. And obviously, the kids will love it too. It's very tangible. They pop in their mouth as they grow. So I would encourage you to do that and just really look at the offerings, both of plants and seeds, and what do you like to eat, and just try it. Just get out there. As I mentioned earlier, not all of them are going to succeed. And one thing we had a class one time, we got some our most experienced gardeners together. We had a failures class. We had them, the
Okay.
most experienced, well-known gardeners, say, "This is when I screwed up. This is when I failed." So I think people just need to realize you can't just do it once and succeed. It's a process. It takes patience, as you kind of mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
and it takes time. And just to go out and try it, and especially with the kids, it's a great experience. The kids want to play in the dirt. They want to know what kind of bugs are out there. They want to explore. So if you get the benefit then of food growing too, then all the better.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think maybe it's a couple of things that we could close out on. It sounds to me like, if you don't mind my saying,
Hmm.
that your natural curiosity is something that has encouraged you as you've moved forward through
Yes.
your professional life. Peace Corps being one aspect of this is to go to another country and
Hmm.
try to help other people. I think that has a certain aspect to that. And then, of course, coming back to the States and
Hmm.
continuing to grow and enrich other people's lives, but learning about them as you go, right?
Right.
You can't be in service to somebody unless you understand their plight and the issues that they face. And to be curious and ask questions, I think is important. And then I just see each step for you. The next step is like, okay, well, I'm here. Why is there an identity issue here with us? Is it our name? Is it
Hmm.
our phone number or how we're set up? And then you're working through that just by asking questions.
Right.
And you mentioned earlier on about being open to help and
Yes.
assistance. I think that's also something that there's one takeaway from our conversation as well, is that it's not necessary that the entirety of our life we go it alone.
Right.
There's definitely going to be moments where you want to feel that sense of empowerment by the work that you do, but understanding that you're there by benefit of somebody before you.
Hmm.
You came on to Seed St. Louis and helped extend its programming and provided that next plateau, that next space moving forward. So let's just close it out with the
Hmm.
following.
Sure.
So the dream is realized.
Okay.
The land is there. The building is there for you. What would be the next step beyond that? Once you have that forum, that space, what could you see as the next step for Seed St. Louis?
Try not to think too far ahead. I want to get my initial things done and get them
That's right.
accomplished. But I think for us right now, one thing we did do about 4 years ago, we did expand to Illinois. For 37 years of our history, we only served St. Louis City and St. Louis County.
Okay.
And I think as a region, we largely ignore the Illinois side. So it was
Okay.
nice for us to say, now we serve you. And I think we're one of the fewer nonprofits that actually do serve both sides of the river. And I think for us, in terms of our expansions, we're going to continue working over there, building new projects, but just really trying to build out and support the Illinois side. Because not to end on necessarily a rough note, but the environmental piece of all the work we do and the soils we work in, there are definitely challenges in the city of St. Louis with the soils. It's even harder on the Illinois side in some locations. And the fact that there's a greater need over there in some ways for soil improvement than we have on the Missouri side. So I would hope that our new demonstration garden would be there, be a magnet for both field trips, for adult education, and just for the average gardener to come out and explore new ideas. But I think as a agency as a whole, to really expand our network beyond just our core history of St. Louis City and St. Louis County, work more on the Illinois side, and possibly even expand beyond our current geography to really help even people further out, just to grow food. Find ways to grow food, whether it be at their home or at a community garden, school garden, or urban orchard. That's great too. But just to grow. I think right now, especially with even grocery prices,
Sure.
people are, okay, wait, maybe I can try to grow those tomato plants in my backyard and see what happens. It's not, we're not going to grow avocados here in St. Louis,
Sure.
but I think there's definitely some pieces that we can give more people that life skill, that self-sufficiency, providing for themselves in a small way, but in a very tangible way as part of their lives.
That's wonderful. I think we should leave it at that.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much, Matt. I appreciate
thank
your
you.
time with us today. Thank you.